Dear students, good morning. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 18th April 2018. The first article, Non-Alignment Redux. This article is about changing global context and relevance of norm, and what is the role India is playing today in norm, and is India moving away from norm? These are the questions we can ask over here. You know that the norm is based on common history and common principles. What is the common history? These Asia and African countries, they have suffered colonialism, imperialism and racism. That's why their major agenda is to fight these three evils of imperialism, colonialism and racism. It means they are against to any hegemony of the first world on the third world. And second aspect is, norm is to protect the sovereignty of the countries, autonomy of their decision making in the erstwhile bloc politics. You know that after the Second World War, the world was divided into two blocs, led by USSR and USA. So norm is an idea to protect independence, autonomy in decision making of the newly independent countries. Now, if you see norm today from the prism of alliances, prism of bloc politics, then norm appears to have lost relevance. But if you see the norm from the substance of policy autonomy that has to be possessed by the developing countries, norms still have relevance, and its relevance is much important today. So in this scenario, India moving close to United States of America, joining the Quad, this is seen as against to the principles of the norm. But we have to understand it from the changed global context in which India needs to have its own support in the changed global scenario. So, if how you see India from what prism you are seeing it, that makes the India's relevance to norm. If you see India based on the substance of the principles on which norm was found, India is still a strong partner to the norm. That's how we can state it as. Chasing the monsoon. So whenever monsoon prediction is good for India, it is good for the stock markets, good for the agrarian economy. It means we can expect a proper crop. So we being primarily an agrarian economy, better monsoons leads to better crop, and better crop leads to increased demand in the economy, better production, better jobs and better profits. That's why monsoon forms the basis for the operation of the Indian economy. Monsoons, how they affect the stock markets and industry is quite apparent, but with regard to the farmers, so the monsoons bring in better production. At the same time, they suffer from fallen prices due to surplus. So farmers' incomes are not substantially increasing. That's where we need to focus upon. That's where comes the price management of agricultural commodities. We have the MSP mechanism, minimum support price mechanism. As it was given only to few crops, the decision making of the farmer is more shifted towards those crops like rice and wheat. And it is also affecting the diversity of food production and crop management in the country. And second is, water use efficiency is very low in India. Either it is groundwater or the rainwater, we have 8 times of use of the water for the same amount of production if compared with China. So in India, monsoons, though they are good, our inability to store water and efficiently use water, lack of water budgeting, it has created water stress conditions. So our energies and efforts have to be focused over there. It means every crop, incentive to a crop, has to be calculated in terms of the water budget so that we can clearly understand what is its consumption and we can prioritize it. And then, managing an election. This is about ongoing Karnataka elections. Normally, what the elections are supposed to be, they have to communicate a manifesto of the political party. So every political party, it shall have a vision for future, which it has to convert it into a manifesto, communicate with the people. People have to make a rational decision based on their needs and priorities and bring the right people into power. So it means substance of the politics is more important than the style of the politics. So, but however, today in Karnataka elections, style and sectarianism has taken dominance over the substance of politics. None of the political parties have taken serious interest in the release of manifestos, but they are interested in mobilizing the people based on the caste and religious lines. If you talk about the Congress, its major agenda is to provide a minority religious status to Lingayats. And BJP, it is about consolidating the Hindu identity. So here, the problems of Karnataka, especially southern Karnataka, and the second, the rural-urban divide, growing agrarian crisis, the substance of the issues, these are being gone back. So the author clearly says that the political one-upmanship has driven the concerns of the state to the backstage. I can say the style of the politics and style of the electioneering has driven out the substance of the politics, substance of the agenda of the politics. That is what is the essence of this article. Law Commission favors simultaneous elections. So we have discussed enough about the simultaneous elections. Now here let us see the constitutional possibility of the simultaneous elections. So here, if simultaneous elections were held, then obviously the center and the state government shall have a tenure of 5 years. How shall we ensure this tenure? And what are the obstacles to ensure this tenure? One is no confidence motion. So obviously the no confidence motion, either it has to be removed or we have to introduce the constructive motion of no confidence. Or the second thing, even if no confidence motion is passed, and if government is being dismissed, elections were held, the newly formed government shall not be given a fresh lease of 5 years. It has to be given only a tenure of remaining period. It means 5 years, after 3 years, the government is dismissed due to no confidence motion. After the elections, the new government that comes into power, it shall have only tenure of 2 years. That is what is the second recommendation given. Similarly, whenever the no confidence motion is introduced, it also has to be followed by a confidence motion. It means the opposition which is introducing the no confidence motion shall be able to show an effective, viable alternative. So that is what it's been spoken over here. So the Law Commission favors simultaneous election. The new South Asia. Now if we see the defense document of United States of America during George Bush era, so they have called Greater Central Asia. What is the definition of this Greater Central Asia? The South Asia is also part of the Central Asia. That's how they visualized it as. And then some people started talking about Greater Southeast Asia. So they want to take the South Asia into Southeast Asia. So the significance of South Asia in international politics appears to be decreasing. Now here, the unique geography where India being structurally very large compared to its neighbors, it is attracting something kind of negative feelings among the neighbors. So it is a natural disadvantage. The reason is India is shown as an alibi to attract or to take up the political dividends in the neighboring countries. Recently we saw that in Nepal. Now the China is actively making inroads into South Asia, especially with India's smaller neighbors. So the wealth and then infrastructure projects, these are becoming the instruments for China to make inroads into South Asia. So it is the time India has to innovatively see the South Asian or neighborhood policy so that it can better integrate with them. So what the India's reaction to the Chinese presence? India wants to provide or take the greater eminence to BIMSTEC. So SAARC is being undermined, BIMSTEC is being given greater prominence. So here India cannot move away from its neighborhood. So that's why an innovative foreign policy is necessary and strategic geographical review is necessary for India. That's how this article talks about. Not awaited to induct jurist in Lokpal panel. So there has to be a selection committee to select the Lokpal. This selection committee consists of Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition in Lok Sabha, Chief Justice of India, Speaker, and jurist. These are the people who have to be the part of it. Now, as there is no opposition party, the leader of opposition is excluded, and leader of the single largest opposition party, Mr. Mallikarjuna Kharge, was invited as a special invitee, which he did not accept. And then all these together, they have to appoint a jurist, an eminent jurist. The Supreme Court and so the government of the day has answered the Supreme Court that this eminent panel is looking for a jurist, and soon Lokpal will be constituted. We will stand by every community. We will safeguard their interests. It is about Ahmed Patel interview, who is the political advisor to Sonia Gandhi. Let's not get into the political aspects of this interview. He has spoken some important issues related to corruption over here. So, the present government, when it came to power, it started blunting the instruments through which people could have discovered the corruption. What are the instruments people can identify the corruption in the government? Right to Information Act. The government did not appoint the information commissioners in most of the states, even at the center, in time. And their salaries, allowances, and supportive systems are being drastically decreased. And the second is, Whistleblower Protection Act is diluted. Third, Lokpal is not appointed till date. And finally, the parliament, where the executive has to be accountable, was rendered useless without Prime Minister giving due attention and respect to it by giving answers on the floor of the House. So these are the points which he has raised, which we can look into. Center targets to build 45 kilometers of roads in a day. Previously, the target was 30 kilometers per day. Now it is raised to 45 kilometers. China-Japan hold reset talks. Remember, protectionism of United States of America under Trump is changing the regional dynamics. China and Japan are more like India, Pakistan with regard to rivalry is concerned. But their relations are seeing a reapproachment because of the growing protectionism in the United States of America. So here, there are two things that has to align with each other. One is China's One Belt, One Road initiative has to align with Japan's Indo-Pacific blueprint. And Japan sees India, Australia, and the US as its main partners in implementing its Indo-Pacific strategy. So, however, resetting of the talks between Japan and China is a positive development. Corporate debt and drag on investment. So, investment is not upcoming in the private sector in India. What are the reasons? Already, our economic survey 2 years back spoke about twin balance sheet deficits, or twin balance sheet problem it is called as. What is this twin balance sheet problem? The first is you have the failure of the banking sector due to NPS, and the second thing is the industry is making huge losses. So there is a huge debt on the industry, corporate sector, and they are showing huge losses. And the second is the NPAs of the banking sector are increasing. These two deficits, these two problems is called as twin balance sheet problem. The IMF has again restated about it. Aadhaar leak may sway polls, fears Supreme Court. With regard to constitutional bench hearing about Aadhaar, it has expressed why can't the Cambridge Analytica kind of situation come up in India? Why can't people's personal data can't be used by the political parties to their advantage, which is a normal fear which the Supreme Court has expressed. And in the final page, I gave you the notes that will be available to you at lax.in/Civilsprep. Thank you very much.